Hello, everybody. I am Jan Jeremias, and I am here with my canine companion, Tonka, and we have an amazing guest today. And I'm so excited that she has decided to join us because I feel like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's here. So I'm so excited to welcome Dr. Susan, the Thrive Architect, and she has this amazing background and this amazing story. A former ballerina, a plastic surgeon, and like limitless, credentials, and featured on shows such as The Doctors and Lifetime TV and in the Huffington Post and Forbes, to just name a few. So I feel so privileged that she's here today to talk to us a little bit about her pets and about pets and how they affect us and all these things. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Dan.
So why don't we start here? Why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and who you work with, and then we'll go into like your pets and stuff, because that's always the best topic.
Always the best part, right? The pets. So as you were saying, I was originally a ballet dancer for almost 14 years professionally. We traveled all around the world, loved it until it started to hurt more than it was fun. And then I went back to what I had planned to do when I was 6 years old, which was to be a physician. I had fallen in love with my pediatrician, told him I was going to be a doctor. He said, okay, when you're ready, you call me. Literally 20 years later, I went back because I was applying to medical school. He remembered me, wrote me a letter, and I'm sure that had a lot to do with me getting in. But anyway, went through medical school, went into plastic surgery because, and it'll make sense when we talk about what I do now, because I didn't like the whole medical industry of have an ill, take a pill. And so I went into plastics, where you go in, you have something done, and you change someone's life. You transform them immediately. Did that for many years until I started having my own health issues. And that's when I went into lifestyle medicine, which is what I do now, which is healing from the inside out. And it looks at every aspect of health, not just, what you're eating or how you're moving. It's everything, which is why pets are so important.
I know. I love that. And obviously I believe pets are important, but tell us about your pets.
So right now I have only one dog. We just lost a dog. She was 14 years old, just lost her a couple of weeks ago. So that's hard. But so now we have one who may be, I'm not going to say she's happy the other one's gone, but she's not brokenhearted either, because she is a 70-pound German short hair pointer who thinks she's a lap dog. So she and mom now have all the time together, and she's just ecstatic. So
I just had this conversation with somebody today about the fact that a lot of times we place our emotions on them. So I remember when my first cat passed away and I had a dog, and I thought, well, she was 14 and I was like, oh my gosh, she's going to be lonely. And I should get her a playmate. Well, I swear, she used to look at me like, Mom, really? What were you thinking? Because we assume, we're like, oh my gosh, they're going to be lonely. I think sometimes we don't look at it from their point of view. Your sweet dog is probably saying, yes, I now have her.
I got mom to myself now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about pets and how they help us?
Oh my goodness. There are so many, other than my own personal experience, there are so many studies about the benefits of health, of having a pet, anywhere from lowering your blood pressure to managing your cholesterol and your blood sugar, your cortisol levels, your stress hormone levels, even the feel good hormone that we give off when we're pregnant and breastfeeding, oxytocin. That's one of the reasons we pet our pets. It feels good. It makes us feel good. Makes them feel good, of course, but it makes us feel good too.
Yeah, I feel so strongly about the emotional benefits that they have for us. The whole aspect of, and I think we've seen this during this time of COVID, how many people got pets and how many people were lonely and needed a companion.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And we call them the pandemic puppies or whatever, but it's real. It was a real thing. It still is a real thing with that disconnection we've been feeling because we haven't been able to get out and be with people and touch people. And so they really filled a void, especially this last couple of years.
Well, I always thought, like, thank God I had my dog to hug, and I would swear he'd look at me and go, "Mom, another hug." Really? Because I was like, because we just have that need. Like, we need to feel that kind of embrace, and we need to embrace something like
Exactly.
physically. And as much as,
Exactly.
you try to imagine, giving people virtual hugs, obviously it's not the same, as
Not
giving
the
somebody
same.
a physical hug. Does
Um,
it matter what kind of pet do you think?
well, I think to some extent it does, and also the size of the pet.
Yeah.
Because one thing, you don't want to be an elderly person with a big dog who's going to pull you down and have you injured. And so that's one thing. But also there are people with allergies, and so they may not be able to work with a cat or a dog, but something else like maybe a reptile or something on that order may work better, or fish. Even fish are shown to lower our stress levels when we watch them, which
I
is
thought
probably
that,
why. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I thought that was so interesting because
yeah.
I think of pets as like, dogs, cats, maybe pocket pets,
Hmm.
um, even some of the outdoor animals, horses, even though it's a little different, but still the same. And all of a sudden I thought, well, it's true because water is calming
It is.
and watching fish is very
Watching.
mesmerizing.
Yes, it is. If you think about it, where do they have them often? In the dentist's office. Exactly. So the fish flying, and swimming, and you're less stressful, So it's good. It's really good. Yeah.
And probably, and the gift of pets, as you brought up the elderly, is that it's good for any age.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. And so, if we're going to we're talking about the elderly, that's one of the things that I see a lot in my field is, and that's so important, is that as we really start to get older and, maybe our friends are gone, sometimes even our spouses and, loved ones are gone, and we're the only ones there. And sometimes a pet is all that person has to make that connection, and so they've got that, but then they also have the socialization, because say for instance maybe a cat doesn't need to go out, but a dog for sure has to go out every single day, which means you're going outside every single day, maybe getting some more walking than you would ordinarily, and you're going to meet people. That's one of the easiest things to do, is to meet people who have dogs. Yeah.
Well, also you have all the physical benefits of having a dog and having to walk that dog,
Exactly.
walk that pet, because you have to. I mean, I don't care, no matter what the size of dog it is, you
You've
really
got to
need.
go.
You've got to go. Exactly. You've got to go. And so you get out there and it's a great form of exercise. And so
Mhm.
it forces everybody to move, including the dog, which is the pets, which are really important.
Which is
Yeah.
exactly. I That reminds me, just a few weeks ago, for whatever reason, I sort of had an injury to my knee, twisted my knee. And so I wasn't able to walk, which then meant my dog wasn't able to walk as much as she normally does, because we normally go out at least a half hour, sometimes, an hour or so. So the two of us gained weight over the last couple of weeks, and we took her to the vet, and the vet was like, "Oh, she really needs to drop some pounds." So it was really good when I got I was back to walking again. So now we're back to playing ball, and she's back to her normal size. So it's a two-way street. We keep them healthy, they keep us healthy.
That's right. And that works both emotionally, like we're talking about, and physically. And I love the idea of older adults getting pets, because I do think, and even my mom has mentioned to me another number of times,
Mhm.
you know, sometimes I really wish I had a pet. And I think that, you know, something as simple as, well, not simple, but something, a cat, which is, really great companion. And
Mhm.
maybe you can't have a dog where you live, or maybe, that's always an issue too, is obviously
Mhm.
checking the guidelines or the rules for where you live and whether they allow pets and what kind of pets and the size of the pet. But I also love the whole interaction of children and kids with pets, because I think I don't know, there is a bond that's created. I think it creates really good habits.
Absolutely. When you speak about habits, one of the studies that came across, and I wasn't even aware of this, they did a study with diabetic teens who had to check their blood sugar. And they gave one group fish to take care of, just fish, not even a dog that really needed a lot, but just fish to feed them and take care of them. And the other group didn't. And they found that the teens who had the fish did a better job of managing their blood sugar as well, because that responsibility they got from taking care of the fish went over into themselves as well. I mean, that's amazing.
That is amazing. It's so interesting. But I think that that's so true, because if you think about it, if you're responsible for taking care of another being, all of a sudden, I think your idea of responsibility just overall changes.
Exactly.
You know, and I think that there are the other aspects of, I always think is beneficial, because it really teaches you about the stages of life. Like, because obviously the aging process in a pet is very different than ours. And so you learn about the way a puppy acts versus like a dog in its teens versus it's like, I always say, some of the most challenging times, when I've had cats, I've had both, is when they're a cat, like they're now a cat size, but they're in a kitten body, like they're one or two. And so they're really mischievous and sometimes destructive because they knock things over and stuff, but they have that sort of kitten friskiness and everything. But that whole idea of teaching the cycle of life to me is so valuable at any age, the reminder of, aging and things like that, which is just, and the respect you have to have.
Exactly. And that's, I think everyone, especially anyone who has had a pet, remembers that first pet that they lost, and to me, it's still there in my heart, but it's something that we learn, and it gives us, an understanding, as you were saying, of the whole cycle of life. So yeah, really, really wonderful.
Yeah. So, are you basically a dog person?
I am a dog person, really, because my husband, we found out after we were married for about a year or two with a cat that he is allergic to cats. So our first couple of years of marriage, he was sneezing all the time and eyes running, and we just thought it was allergies. And then we actually, I think for some reason, our cat had to go elsewhere for a little bit, and all of the symptoms went away. Cat came back. They all came back. We were like, oh my goodness, you're allergic to cats. So we don't have cats anymore, but I just love animals, period. I mean, my daughter had got a little black snake that was maybe about, well, you can't see my fingers, maybe about 6 inches long. And by the time the snake passed, it was about 5 feet long. So we had a 5-foot long black snake that occasionally would get out of the cage. And I remember still the one time when I walked into my bedroom and it was hiding behind the door. I mean, it was a sweet snake and never did anything bad, but it was kind of something to see a 5-foot snake behind your door where you're not expecting.
Well, sorry to, I have to say that I'm not a snake person. So it's not my brother always says to me, maybe it's genetic, because he's not a snake person either. And so we always laugh, because when he said to me, when we I don't know, not too long ago, we were talking about it. It's not something you normally talk about in conversation. Right. And he said to me, oh my gosh, you don't like snakes either? Said, I love all animals. Like, I honor and respect them, especially in the wild, for what they do, like keeping, rodents and insects and things like that under control. So I kind of honor the whole ecosystem, but I wouldn't choose to own one, like have one in my house. Yeah. So, but it is interesting. And I've had both, and they just sort of, to me, just kind of, they have different energy. They have different personality. Oh, absolutely. Cats are cats and very, they always really do. My cats have always been very regal. like that kind
Oh,
of
yes.
that very attitude kind of thing. And dogs are, cuddly,
They're
and
just
not that my cats are cuddly, but just it was kind of like on their terms,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly, exactly. Although I must say, I did have one cat when we were growing up, but actually was living by myself at that point, maybe because it was just me and the cat and I. It literally stayed with me all the time to the point where I was going to teach it how to walk on a leash to go out. And it would have because it just loved being with me the entire time. And I unfortunately made the mistake of putting the leash on her, which was fine, and then forgot something in the house, put the leash on the doorknob. And because she always followed me, she tried to follow me back to the house. She kind of choked herself, and that was it. She didn't want to be on a leash anymore, which I totally understand. But I mean, other than that, she probably would have been fine walking on the leash just because she was so attached to me. It was an amazing kind of thing. Yeah.
I think one of the, when you touched upon this earlier, one of the hardest things is when we lose a pet. And, I think it's so hard. And I learned so many years ago that, I had a friend who lived around the corner who had multiple animals. And when I lost my dog and I didn't have a cat anymore, and all of a sudden the house was petless, like I had nothing. It was so devastating, and so empty. And now, as my dog gets to be about 10, I've actually thought about, like, it might be the time to get another dog, just because I don't want to be without anything. And that's basically what she had said to me. And I thought, well, if I wait too long, then she's going to be older and she might be like my cat. My last dog that cursed me when I got a kitten, except I would get a puppy. So I would really want her to be able to play and stuff like that, with my dog now. So,
Yeah.
So I find it so interesting that pets can lower things like, well, I guess because it lowers cortisol, and then cortisol affects so many different systems in the body.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, as you know, cortisol is a master hormone, so it's related to your sex hormones. It's related to your blood sugar. As your cortisol comes down, so does your blood sugar, and it's same thing with cortisol. So it's all interrelated, and it's just amazing what a difference it can make. Yeah.
Let alone all the other benefits. So lowers blood sugar. And then if you're exercising, that's another great way to lower cortisol anyway.
Exactly.
Because, movement is always a great reliever of stress.
Oh, yes.
The other thing I find so funny is when I meditate or when I practice yoga. I mean, yes, I'm on the floor some of the time. My dog always comes in, but
of course,
that whole idea of, because I do teach yoga, so that all my students that have pets, their pets are in the room. Like, it's like, I mean, pets are always on class. It's hysterical. And it's kind of like that energy, that very calming kind of energy, which they respond so well to. And so it's kind of like,
love that. Have you done yoga with goats? I have read so much about it. Have not ever done it. Haven't seen it, but I've read so much about it. I'm not quite sure how that works.
Yeah, I have never done that. I've actually watched a few things with like a yoga studio that used to have like cats that would roam around, and it was hysterical because I remember when I used to practice and my cat would be there, and cats would be there, and they would like go underneath my legs, and all my students knew, like, they would get on the mat, like it was just, every now and then Tonka, my dog, gets on my mat when I teach. And I'm like, a few weeks ago I was doing a private and he laid across the mat. Like, I used him as a bolster. I used him as a yoga bolster because he was in the way. I was like, well, when all else fails, you can always use them as a bolster, instead. Exactly. If they're big enough, German short-haired pointers are beautiful dogs.
Oh, I love her. She's not in the room now because sometimes she gets naughty when we're usually not. Usually she's right here at my feet, but I wanted to be sure we were quiet today.
Yeah. So is she, you said how old is she?
She's about 8.
8, okay.
And we actually got her, believe it or not. So remember, I said earlier that she was maybe a little bit okay, maybe even happy that the other dog is not here, as weird as that may sound. The dog before, her name was Oreo. She was a black and white, and was in mixed breed. And we had a a beagle prior to that, and then Oreo. So we had those two dogs, and Oreo, I mean the other dog, finally passed, and he had always gone around with a collar that had the tags and everything, so it made the little jingle noise that they make. And when that dog, Scooter, passed, Oreo was very much attached to Scooter. And we didn't realize how bad it was until we picked up the collar that we had had from Scooter. It made the jingle noise. Oreo came rushing into the room to see, where is he? Where is he? Where is he? Realized he wasn't there. And you could just see her whole thing just dropped. I mean, you could see how bad she felt. And that's when we said, okay, we've got to get another dog to kind of help her out. But yeah, they have different personalities and different needs and wants. So she really was attached to her dog friend. So
yeah, it's interesting that I find as I've had different pets, and I'm really I think I'm somewhat biased to larger dogs. I mean, I've always liked larger dogs. I mean, I love any dog, but that, when I were to get one, it would be preferred, except that I have friends that have small dogs. They get to carry them around all day, right? Or they,
they're fun.
And bring them anywhere. And I think the one benefit, I think, is you can fly with them. Yes, and that's to me like probably one of the best things, is that you could put them in a carrier and get them on a plane versus a larger dog, which personally I would never do. If I drove with them, that'd be one thing, but I would never want to put them on an airplane, or maybe unless I had a private jet, and then they could go on the plane with me.
Go on the plane with you. Exactly.
So, but I think it's interesting. And, how is the same benefits happen in men than women? Like physical benefits and things?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Which is a good thing, because it's all of the good kind of hormones that come up.
That's right. And it's just nice to know, because I obviously, male, female, different sexes have different ways of expressing their emotions and dealing with their emotions. And to think that something so neutral as like a pet can benefit both. And it's not like you're asking people to, I don't know, I mean, not that I'm criticizing therapy or anything, but just like, not like you're asking people so they have to talk about what's going on necessarily, but they just get a good dose of really good feeling, good hormones.
Good feeling, exactly. And I laugh when you say that, because my husband has always said he's not a pet person. He said, I'm not a pet person. And yet we have all of the pictures with him with all of the doggies in his lap, because they all love him. Some of them, they kind of sit there and they come and sit right in front of him. They just stare at him, because he just has this thing, and they love him, and he loves them back, even though he says he doesn't. So.
Well, I'm laughing because my father always said that he wasn't a pet person. And growing up, I mean, I only got dogs we had dogs when I was very, very, very young, a baby. And then we had cats. And then when I became an adult and moved out, I got my own dog. So I had to get a dog. But my father was always like, I'm not a pet person, but the cats would always go to him. Like if they, in the middle of the night, we lived in the, in a pretty rural area. So it was like, if the cats wanted to go out at night, they would always go to him and wake him up and everything. My father would worry about them. He'd be like, did the cat come home or whatever? And yet I'm not a pet person,
No. Heaven forbid.
Right, exactly. I don't know. Maybe it's a macho thing or something.
I guess so.
Maybe it's something like that. But even though I think that I know a number of really awesome dog trainers that are all men. So it's not like it's,
exactly.
And if you look at something like the military, they use dogs and have, all
those
the time.
Strong bonds. Exactly.
Bonds. So they are there and everything. I think it's so interesting that animals really do bond with us as much as they we really do become their pack.
Exactly. And I was reading about that, and why they, like, my dog literally will sit at my feet, wherever I am. That's where she likes to be, and it's because I have become her pack. I don't know if I'm her leader. I don't know if I'm the alpha, because she does sit on top of me. I don't think you're supposed to sit on top of your alpha. But we are really, really close, and that's just the way, that's that relationship that we have. So
it's such a special relationship, like no other.
Mm.
So if you were to give one like suggestion to people, or just besides forget a pet,
just get a pet.
just get a pet. I'm always like, find a pet. Like, I was talking to a student the other day who has a house in Florida, and she's there right now. And she said, and I guess in one of the towns they have a cat cafe, and there's all these cats around, and she just wanted to go hang out with the cats. So she just went with a friend. And I thought, what a great idea. Like, you can't have a pet at home for whatever reason. Maybe it's because you're not allowed to have pets. Like, go and go spend time,
What a cool thing. I love that. Exactly.
Maybe we need to bring them about, like, somehow. We need to get people to start like going out, and I mean, they could volunteer. That's, one of the things they could do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if like you said, if there's a reason that you can't have one yourself, perhaps it's like with my husband, can't have a cat. It just doesn't work. So a different way to make that come about, whether it's volunteering or going and hanging out with other people who have. Yeah. I think
Right. Great. That was me for many years, because I didn't have a dog. So I would hang out with lots of people who had dogs.
Exactly.
Who had dogs.
Wow. Yeah.
But this has been so much fun. And thank you so much for joining me and talking about our favorite subject almost. I think it's
exactly. Well, that's how we met, because you were posting something and I was like, yes. And I was like, how wonderful.
Yeah. And so we'll look forward to having you back, and keep us posted on your pup there. And thank you again.
Thank you. This was wonderful. Thanks so much, Jan.
You've been listening to Pets, People, Life, and Longevity, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can catch every episode at exvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcast app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and wherever you find podcasts.